We're on. It's a go? Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here for this meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Carmel. Before we get started, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. We have our Eagle Scout candidate here, Seamus Acton. Seamus, can I ask you to come up and lead us in the pledge tonight? Go right up to the podium there where the mic is, Seamus. Whenever you're ready.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you all please remain standing for a moment of silence? Okay, thank you. Seamus, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Okay, once again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for attending this meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Carmel, and thank you all at home for watching tonight. Tonight's Town Board meeting is a work session, and the date is Wednesday, September 27th, 2017. And for the record, all Town Board members are present with us this evening, as is our Town Council, Greg Fulchetti, all the way down to my left. Jim Gilchrist, the Recreation Director, is here as well. Mary Ann Maxwell, our Town Controller, has an item on the agenda, and Mike Simone, our Highway Superintendent, is here, along with our Chief of Police in the back. So we have quite a few of our department heads and managers that are in attendance tonight because they have items on the agenda that they're going to present to the Town Board. So the first item on the agenda tonight is a review of the Town Board minutes of September 19th, 2017. Unless any Town Board members have any comments on that, we're going to move on. So the first item on the agenda, Glenn Drosy, our assessor, is here also. Is Glenn Drosy, the Town Assessor, and he's here to consider adopting an extension of the Cold War Veterans Exemption. Glenn, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Yes, good evening. Yes, I'm here to inform the board that the law for the Cold War Veteran Exemption, RP 458-B, has recently changed, allowing the current duration of the exemption for 10 years to be extended by local option to as long as the veteran is qualified. Currently, we have 111 Cold War veteran exemptions on the assessment roll. Some of these exemptions will expire on the 2018 assessment roll if this local option is not adopted. This exemption requires the veterans to serve in full active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for other than active duty training during the Cold War period. The Cold War period is defined as September 2nd, 1945 to December 26th, 1991. This exemption can only be given on the owner-occupied primary residence, also to the veteran spouse, if the veteran is deceased, and unremarried, I should add also to that. So I recommend that the town adopt this change so that we may keep these exemptions on the assessment roll in the future. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely, Glenn. Yeah, we have no problem with this at all. We want to keep our veterans receiving the benefits that they so deserve. So thank you for yes, thank you for bringing this forward. Any questions or comments, John, Frank? No?
I think only comment as of the only veteran sitting on the board, I hope that the school board follows suit. I know that we had this discussion a few years ago with the school board in regards to doing everything that they could for the veterans with the exemptions that were approved by the state, and I hope that that gets revisited at the school level and they do everything that they can, same as the town's doing presently. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Glenn. Yep, thank you.
You got to do local.
We have to do it local.
To have a public hearing. It's going to be an amendment to Chapter 137 of your code, which is taxation, that will extend the duration of the exemption, of the entitlement of the exemption. I'll draft the proposed modification. At the next meeting, you can set a public hearing, and at the close of the public hearing, you can consider voting on it. So you're probably late October, I would guess. It doesn't affect you. The 2018 roll will not have the entitlement if you don't extend it, but it would have to be done preferably before taxable status date in 2018, 3/1/18, definitely before the tentative roll. But if you can do it during the course of the last quarter of the year, you're well within the time frame.
Okay, yeah, let's do that, Greg. Let's get it done before the end of the year. This way it's in place and, the sooner the better, exactly. Thanks, John. Okay. All right, next item on the agenda, number 2, Police Chief Mike Kazari. This is to consider request to accept the proposal for consulting services. Chief, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
So I am asking for permission to enter into an agreement with 207C Inc., Mr. Robert Gabrielli. His experience is he was the Deputy Inspector General for New York State Workers' Comp fraud for 17 years. What we are proposing is to use his firm for consulting with our workers' comp and our 207C for advice, helping us manage our claims, and the dealing with NYMER and the MRIs and all the things that go along with our workers' comp claims.
Okay, did you speak a little bit about his background? I'm sorry, you may have, Mike, but
He did 17 years as the Inspector General with workers' comp, New York State workers' comp fraud. He's got a great deal of knowledge and experience in this line, and any guidance that we can get at the rate that he's going to charge us per hour, is well worth it, in my opinion.
I remember seeing something in regards to not only board certified with workers' comp, but as well something in regards to some private investigators on staff. Is that at that rate that's set in here as well?
The $80 rate, yes.
Okay, yeah, to me, it seems very affordable, and it's something that is,
And it's only what we, it's only what we use. We're not paying him a fee.
Right.
It's only the hours that we use, and if it doesn't work out, we are not out any money other than maybe a little education.
yeah, no, I think for the price point where it is, for the expertise that he has in the background that the firm has, I think that it's a worthwhile expenditure for us to utilize.
Yeah. Okay, any further questions by the board regarding this item that the chief brought before us? I think it's good that, that you're going to use this individual. As John said, his expertise, his knowledge, his background is only going to help be able to provide you the assistance and help that you need, with respect to these particular cases that he's going to be looking at and working on. So.
Yeah, and it's overwhelming us with the amount of paperwork and regulations. It would be good to have somebody else that has expertise.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Anyone else? No. Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next item on the agenda is Mike Carnazza, our Building and Codes Enforcer. I'll handle this one for Mike. He has provided us with 4 properties that have been vacant and are unmaintained for several months, and we cannot get any response from the owners. So they've made attempts to reach out to the owners of the property, and those attempts have been unsuccessful. There's 4 properties that he's requesting that the town board approve and authorize him to go out and hire a contractor to get pricing from contractors, then hire a contractor to clean up these properties. These properties evidently have been vacant and abandoned for a period of time where it's become a blight in the communities where these homes are located. And we as a town have a property compliance law, and since the building department has not been able to contact anyone to advise them or mandate them to clean up the property with respect to a code violation, we're going to have to do it. So what we do is the town pays the contractor, and then the cost for that the contractor charges to clean up a particular property, then we lien the property. So there's a judgment against the property, a lien put on the property. When it's eventually sold, the town recoups the cost for the cleanup. So there's an actual judgment on that particular property that's recorded. Am I right, Greg?
That's one method that you could utilize. The way that your property maintenance law is written in I think it's Chapter 114 is that the town or board can authorize the cleanup, commissioning of the cleanup of the property or properties. After that, the building inspector is authorized to send an invoice to the last record owner for the cost of the cleanup. And if it's not paid within 30 days, the building inspector is authorized to file an affidavit detailing that sequence with the town clerk's office, and then it can be turned over to the county for a levy on the following year's tax bill. So it serves as a lien, and then it's within the taxes. And generally, it gets satisfied by the county because they satisfy your levy anyway. You could do it the other way, where you could bring the party whose property is cleaned up into court, take a judgment, and file it within the county clerk's office, and that would serve as a lien, and the mechanism to pay it would be that circumstance. If it's not satisfied when it be sold or refinanced, it would likely be satisfied. But the way that your property maintenance law is written, it's actually more expeditious. You have a better chance of getting it paid off sooner.
Sooner, right. Okay. These are what the term has become the zombie properties. What, I'm sure you've all heard that. There's more than we'd like to have in the town of Carmel, but these are 4 that are in extremely bad shape. The properties are all overgrown. It's in total disrepair and disarray of the properties. So the banks may not have taken them back yet. That could be the case. So we need to clean them up. There's more, but these are the 4 that the building inspector is requesting. So I'm just going to, Greg, I'm not going to give the names. I probably shouldn't give the names of the property. What about the addresses? I have the addresses, but
It's up to you. I mean,
Yeah, do you
I'm
do
not
you have
sure,
to?
I'm not certain that you need, no, it's within the backup.
okay.
So it's available.
All right, there's 4 properties. So the building inspector is
to
going
you.
to take care of following up on this with, once the board authorizes him to go out and get pricing for the cleanup, he'll follow up on it.
I think it's a good point to reiterate that if you believe in your neighborhood, you have a property that fits the description, give us a call so that we can keep this going. The only way I believe that we get these properties listed is by complaints coming from citizens 90% of the time,
Right.
probably. So
Yeah.
if you do have someone in your neighborhood that may be falling into a property like this, please give a call into the building department and we can get it going, so we can make sure that everybody's neighborhood looks nice.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, any other comments by the board? All right, there being none, we're going to go on to 4 and 5 are with Jim Gilchrist, the Director of Recreation and Parks. The first one is to consider an Eagle Scout proposal for Red Mills Historic Park, Boy Scout Seamus Acton. Jim, welcome.
Thanks.
Seamus, thanks again for being here. And they're going to go over Seamus's project for his Eagle Scout.
Yeah, briefly go over and he'll finalize the whole project for you. Seamus has been in front of the Recreation Committee in paper over about the last 5 or 6 months. He finally came to the meeting, that was in August?
Yes.
Yep. I brought his idea of an Eagle Scout project in front of the Recreation Committee. They all agreed with it. They thought it's a great idea. The committee did ask us to reach out to the Historical Society because they basically helped us build a park years ago, back in 1999, I think it was. So I reached out to Mary McDonald. I sent her back up. She couldn't really see the birdhouses she wanted, and she was not available to come by and take a look at them. So she called Alan. Alan came over. He took a look at the birdhouses. So what we're planning on doing is having a birdhouse on each one of the posts around Red Mills Park, and also on the posts of the electrical panels in the back. And I'm going to let Seamus go through his project, show you how they're built, how they're going to be maintained, which is critical. You can't just put them up and walk away. They've got to be maintained yearly. So why don't you go through your project and also talk about your deadlines that you have.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically,
Let me just turn the mic over to Seamus a little bit, thanks.
So basically, I chose the Red Mills Historical Park because I live close to the park and I've grown up around that park, and the park means a lot to me. So it's tough to find a good Eagle Scout project, but when I was discussing this with a bunch of people, it seemed to fit in the area. So basically, there's posts and signs throughout the whole park that give a description about the area of Mayapack Falls and the mill. And I wanted to put these birdhouses with a copper roof on top of each post to prevent the post from rotting. The birdhouses are made of cedar, which is a rot-resistant wood, stainless steel screws, which will not rust, and cedar roofing for protection through all the elements of the weather. Also, the roof will age to green patina, which will really look nice throughout the park as a historical park. The copper is historical. Also, I'm going to be working with the Cub Scouts with my project. they have a badge called Woodwork, and then they have to build a birdhouse, each Cub Scout. So I had made pine birdhouses, and everything's already cut, and all the Cub Scouts have to do is come and assemble the birdhouses, and they'll be able to achieve their badge and have everything done. Also, I'm also going to be planting holly shrub throughout the park for the birds to eat, because holly has a very nice color. The deer don't really like to eat it, and the birds love to eat it. So I was going to plant the holly shrubs in front of each post. I'm going to have 2 in front of each one. The electrical boxes, there's 2 in the park, and this will block the electric boxes from, it'll make the park look nicer, and the holly shrubs will make it stand out a little bit more. So now for the cleaning of the birdhouses, it's just 4 simple screws in the front and back, and the birdhouse comes off and the base stays on through a lag bolt in the post, and it just pops right off and you clean it out. And I will have the troop do that once a year. During the troop meeting, everybody will come down to the park and help me clean these out, or the troop will clean them out, and it's simple. Also, my 18th birthday is October 15th, so I'm on a pretty tight deadline. Right now I have everything built, everything done. I just have to basically put them up and everything's good to go, have my troop come down. I'm looking to go into the Coast Guard, so that's also why it's a time crunch for me and why I have to get this project done.
Okay. Yeah, it's time sensitive. October 15th?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, it'll get done. Yeah.
Yeah, can we actually get the
Yeah.
motion today, get
Tonight, we
everything
can do
moving? If you want help Saturday planting some holly bushes, let us know.
Thank you.
These 2 are great at digging holes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I make a motion that we accept Seamus Acton's Eagle Scout project for Red Mills Park, and that he's authorized to go ahead and install the birdhouses.
Second. As proposed per the handout.
As proposed per his handout to the town board. So we're all in agreement with it, we're good. So I made the motion, the rest of the board seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Is that official, Greg?
Insurance.
Perfect.
I'll talk to your troop about the.
Before he starts, but it's a valid act of the board.
Now, whose insurance? Will it just be the?
Boy Scouts of
Boy
America
Scouts of America?
usually provide a
I'll
certificate.
get that and I'll get it to Greg.
Perfect.
He's got some on file. He has the whole book.
All right, you could get started this weekend.
Thank you
How
very
is your
much.
fundraising going?
Fundraising's just about done. I have, basically for fundraising, I'm going around to local businesses and I'm asking for $30 to help me with my project, and that will cover the cost of a birdhouse. And I will have a little plaque displayed on everybody who helped me donate, all the local businesses, and it will be displayed in the park for everybody to see.
It's great. I think it's
Okay.
a great project, and
Thank
Great.
you.
I love the
Like it.
look of these birdhouses. I
Yeah.
think it'll fit really well.
I like the copper roofs on them.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
patina,
With
the patina is
patina.
going to look really good in that park.
Yeah. The cedar, everything is done nicely, and to at least have it annually cleaned out, that's great that it's going to continue on.
God bless you.
Do you know, I never knew you had to clean out a birdhouse. I never
Well, that was
knew
actually
that.
going to be my question, because I know, because I've done bat houses with my kids and bird houses, and you always have to worry about the maintenance on that stuff, otherwise.
I just thought
there's
they
buildup.
go in there and they live.
But it's a great project, and really looking forward. Like I said, if you need any assistance with it, it's 2 weeks.
Was in the hole?
Put donations in there for you.
Can we pass it around?
Like church.
That's really nice, James.
Thank you.
All donations will be accepted. There you
Great job, thank you.
go. Send it over to Heather.
I'll get you Jonathan's contact. He said he can help you with the planting down there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually got 2 businesses myself and my wife will support, and like I said, we'll be out there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Seamus.
No problem.
Appreciate it. Great job. Okay, next item on the agenda is number 5, and this is consider request to accept a proposal for installation of surveillance cameras at Chamber Park and Jimmy McDonough Park. These are security cameras for those 2 parks.
Both of these items are in this year's budget, so the funds are available this year. And this is a project we've been working on. We started working on it last February. We worked with the Carmel Police Department and CIA Securities. We went around to all town parks, coming up with a program for each park and what would be involved with putting surveillance cameras in each park. After we got everything together, the proposals were back to us beginning of July. It went in front of the Recreation Committee at their August meeting, and their recommendation would be to do it in 2 parks first, the Chamber Park and Jim McDonough Park. Have both of those parks under video surveillance for protecting the parks and also protecting the residents that use the parks. And I brought Jim Starr from CIA Security. He basically spearheaded the whole thing for me. We worked with the Detectives Division from Carmel Police Department. They went around to each park, came up with problem areas that they've been dealing with over the years, and the best way to handle these systems. If you look at the one for the Chamber Park, you'll see there's an option. There's the first video surveillance system, and then there was an option. That option was the police department's option. That's going to be taken out, and Chief Kazari is taking care of that through another revenue stream. So that would be left out of this. And I asked Jim to come down to really briefly go over the system. If anybody has any questions on the cameras that will be used, how the data will be stored, how we can access it. So if you want to go over that with the town board, it'd be great.
Sure. First of all, thank you, everyone, for your time. I appreciate that. And I think the birdhouse is going to be a tough one to follow. That was everyone's pretty happy with that.
Put a camera in one?
So yeah, cameras in a birdhouse. So I'm going to start with Chambers Park. And when we looked at Chambers Park, there were a couple things right away that struck me. There's a lot of current infrastructure on the back of the gazebo that's there. So we're going to utilize a little bit more of that space for our equipment. The equipment that'll be going in there has got some expansion room just because of the location of the equipment, so close to that downtown area, and the availability of wireless technology. We could easily push some video to that location from up and down that street in the future if it was ever needed. So it's built pretty robust. It's going inside of an enclosure. The enclosure is going to have conduit that runs up into the peak of the gazebo, and we're going to have long-range IR cameras that are up there that will be watching the park. Now, we're going to take advantage of some pretty high resolution that's pretty affordable at this point in the security camera business. So we're going to be up at 4.1 megapixel for the pictures. So we're going to have some excellent resolution when it comes to interrogating the video and trying to see what took place. The enclosures are going to have a small vertical rack, if you will, inside of the enclosure. That vertical rack will have a UPS, which will be plugged into an ultra block for incredible amounts of suppression on the system to protect it from any lightning strikes in the area. It'll have a network switch in there that will support power over Ethernet to the cameras, and then there'll be a 32-channel recorder there to give you lots of room to be able to add anywhere up and down that corridor, which is, it's been something I've been doing with a lot of municipalities lately. We're doing a rather large deployment currently for the city of Newburgh. I'm putting cameras, 15 of them throughout the city, and we're bringing it all back over a wireless network. So that's a great location for that whole area to be able to feed back to if need be. 3 cameras looking out at the park, and then we also have 2 inside the gazebo for any vandalism that could take place inside the gazebo. And that's Chambers Park. Does anybody have any questions about Chambers Park?
Where's the recorder?
It's going to be housed in that locked metal cabinet that will be on the back of the gazebo, and there'll be a monitor in there that will be bolted in place, as well as a UPS, a network switch, and a mouse. So you can walk right up to it and you can interrogate it there, or down the road, or even if it's available now, we could certainly get that into an internet connection and it fully supported off-site as well.
Yeah, I was wondering, could you go over kind of what the price difference would be to go from where it's all stationed at the park to where it would be transmitted wirelessly back? We have dispatchers that are monitoring cameras all the time, so I'm not sure if there's maybe something we want to look at adding into that room.
There's a little bit of a difference between the expense of shipping the video back here versus watching it here. If we were to deploy a network connection there, a very simple network connection from Verizon or whomever happens to be supporting that area, The typical throughputs that we would get would support remote live view of the second stream. There'll be 2 streams from the camera simultaneous. One will be a 4.1 megapixel image, and the other will be a D1 resolution image. The 4.1 will be recording on the network video recorder. The D1 resolution, which is a lot smaller bandwidth, will be available off-site for live monitoring. So the thought process is we could certainly push video out for live monitoring under a traditional network connection. However, if we were going to try and record those here, we would need a dedicated bandwidth that you're not going to be able to support with an internet service provider unless we went with a full dedicated fiber link back here, which would be...
That's pricey, right?
It would be substantial, substantial. But you are working toward that one step at a time by adding the parks and looking at some other projects that I'm looking at with the chief. We have a global process in mind where we're looking at, you know, being able to slowly integrate all of these things as you grow.
So maybe, Jim, you could answer this better. Are we going to look at doing 2 parks like this each year, or is there a schedule to complete all the other town parks that we have?
Well, the main thing, this is our first go at it with the town parks, so those are our busiest parks that we're going to look at. And then if there's anything that we can revise and change for the other parks, but our plan is to do all town parks at some point. So you're probably right, doing 2 a year might be something that we'd be doing.
Okay.
2 or 3 a year, we'll see. Like, for instance, for the airport park, you know, that's a park that's going to be under construction. What we looked at doing was just a limited area on the entrance road. We don't have anything really else to put cameras on throughout that park. So it might make sense to hold off on that park a little bit later.
Until we get some utilities going in there, or... The only thoughts I had, just looking at the amount of reports we have at the police station for the parks, airport's just as much as Chambers. Sycamore's twice as much as any other park, I think. So I think that one's probably going to be paramount to do.
Well, Sycamore Park would probably be something that, if I remember correctly, the estimate was around $35,000 to go from the
that's a big
dog park down
project
to the
there.
beach. A tremendous amount of electrical work that's got to be done, conduit work throughout the park. And that's another park that we're going to be hopefully doing some improvements in the next couple of years. So that's something that we might want to phase that park in.
Right.
And try to...
Over a year or 2, 3 years maybe through it.
That might be a park that we would do like for the whole year, and then do maybe 3 other parks another year. So, but our plan right now is to get these 2 underway, see how they go, and then starting say January 1st. So we'll try to go at another 2 or 3 parks.
Beautiful. Yeah, I look forward to it. Unfortunately, we've seen too many incidents where we've had vandalism, where we've had people with unauthorized vehicles out there tearing things up, and it's very nice to see that we're moving forward towards getting good security systems in place. So thank you. And thank you to the Park Advisory Committee as well.
Moving on to McDonough. McDonough Park has one building that has both a male and female bathroom in it, and then there's a storage area in between the 2 bathrooms. In that room, we will be placing a locked metal cabinet as well, similar to the one that is scheduled for the back of the Chambers Park. And again, that'll be an all-inclusive system where the uninterruptible power supply will be in there, the recorder will be in there, a monitor and a mouse will all be in there. It'll be a fully self-contained, self-sufficient unit outside of 120 volts AC power. There will be a wireless connection from that building that will go to one of the 2 poles that is directly across the driveway to get 2 cameras up higher to be able to look at the 2 baseball fields. There will also be a camera that looks down at the problematic skate park. And those 3 cameras that I just mentioned are all long-range 4.1 megapixel, very high-resolution cameras. We will also have 2 other cameras, one that will be looking down the parking lot area and one that will be watching the entry to that small building, coming and going in and out of the bathrooms and that storage area for protection. There'll be a small enclosure that will be up on that pole, and we will have no wires, no low voltage wires in ground at McDonough Park. It will be a wireless point-to-point connection that will be secured, and that will bring the video back from the pole that is to the left. It's the pole on the left if you're looking toward the two baseball fields. Yes. And that's the McDonough Park deployment.
Is there a way, since we're spending all this money and then we're gonna be spending it also in the future, with you guys to put the warranty to 2 years instead of 1?
I can ask. I can certainly ask for you.
Okay, thank you.
Susie, speaking of that, there's two options you can see. There's an annual, call it like a checkup, you call it, where they come out and actually look at all the equipment, and the other is a maintenance agreement, a yearly maintenance agreement. I don't know if you saw that on the back of any of the proposals. Can you go over the two different proposals that we have?
I don't see that.
I'll start with Chambers. The two options are as follows. 10% of the installation price billed annually will get a disassemble, cleaning, inspection, and testing of the video equipment, the fans, the CPUs, the power supplies, and any preventative maintenance on the video recorder every 6 months, which includes disassembly and removal of what will probably be some amount of dust from the fans cooling the equipment. It helps the equipment to last longer. The second option is strictly an inspection where the technicians come over and they let you know if there's a problem with any of the equipment. They look everything over, but there's no maintenance work done. It's just you have this camera out or you have that camera out, at which time you can decide if you want to move forward with that. And then Susie, I think you had asked about the warranty. In the past, I have had some success with getting a 2-year warranty on the parts, but not the labor. I don't know if that's something that would work for you, but I think I might be able to do that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the same thing applies on the, I'm going to go over to the McDonough Park.
Jim?
Yes?
Just one quick question. So the optional one that's attached to the chamber, as it's an optional estimate for if we were going with the plate capture, correct? So we're not even considering that one, because I'm looking at a cost there
Correct.
of the 10,000 and change. The 10,040? Yeah, so that one is out. We're not considering that. Okay, so we're just talking about the 11,300 right now for
Yes.
chamber. Okay, great, thanks.
And I'd recommend going with the service contract. And that would kick in, what, after 2 years, if we have a 2-year?
Well, it'd be the parts and the labor side of things. And I would just have to talk to John Lombardi about that, how he would want to structure that. But as this is currently written, just get to the right page here. The option 1, which is your service contract and preventative maintenance of the 10%, includes parts and labor. It's 10% annually. The preventative maintenance is done. If there's something that's broken, it gets replaced. Service contract. The second option is where we just have the inspection, where they go out, they look things over, check it all out, and if there's something wrong, they let you know what needs to be resolved.
I'm wondering, as technologies advance and cameras become more higher resolution, lower cost, price point, is this something that's going to be a system very easy to upgrade, swap out the parts, and integrate what we have for present components with future technologies, or do you think that that's something we would have to completely revamp a system for?
That's one of the reasons why we're doing internet protocol at every location, because that allows us to make small, subtle changes if need be along the way. If the recorder needs to be upgraded for some particular request on your part, performance request of something that's available then that isn't available now, the network switch would not be replaced, the backbone, the wiring of the equipment would not need to be replaced. The wireless point-to-point links that are going in are capable of pushing in the neighborhood of 108 megabits. And we're talking about using 10 or 12 of that 108 megabits. So we've got some,
A lot of room for expansion there. For you.
yeah, and
Perfect.
the recorders that we're putting in support up to 12 megapixel cameras right now.
Okay.
So we've got some room. It's just that once you go above 4 megapixel, the value
Right
to
now
price
it's-
point starts to fall apart.
Yeah, but I'm sure in 5 years, something that's 8 megapixel is going to be less than what a 4 megapixel is today. So as long as we have the availability to utilize it as the prices continue to drop with technology increasing, then I think it's great. Again, really looking forward to seeing a nice, secure park system for the entire town.
Anybody have anything else for me at this point? I'll talk to John and I'll get back to you with that, okay?
Okay, yeah, you can let Jimmy know, he'll let us know.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay,
Okay, great.
thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Jim. All right, appreciate it, thank you. Okay, so 4, 5, 6. Number 6, John Fulchetti, PE, engineering consultant for the town of Carmel. John, this is to consider proposals for engineering services for Carmel Water District Number 2 and Carmel Water District Number 9. John?
Which one you want to deal with first?
We'll go with, let's do number 9 first.
Okay. So you have the proposal for the design services, permitting services, construction, engineering services. All of these numbers are exactly what, and tasks are what was identified in the engineering report that you used to put forth your bond resolution, and you have it in front of you.
Okay, so total linear feet is 2,525 feet for the entire project and throughout Water 9?
Correct. That's the remainder of the pipe that hasn't been replaced over the course of the last 70 years.
John, what would you estimate how many linear feet have been replaced in that district? Aside from what we're doing, do you know how many?
All the rest of it, except for the 2,500 feet that's left,
How many-
off the top
yeah,
of my
to
head,
help?
I don't remember, Ken.
Okay,
I
all
don't
right,
remember what the total was. It's in the report.
okay. All right, and when was that done? When was the?
Most of the other replacements, I think, were done between, I don't know, 2000 and 2006 or 2007.
Okay. Do you know what type of pipe was put in when they did that? Was it PVC?
I think most of it was probably Blue Brute. Could have been iron, but I suspect it was Blue Brute. It's just less expensive pipe.
Okay. Yep. Okay, Town Board, do you have any questions or comments for the engineering consultant in regards to Water District Number 9's upgrades to the mains? Jonathan, have anything, Frank? Susie, John?
Nope.
Okay. All right, John, let's go to number 2 then, Carmel Water 2.
Right, so I think that Rich put together a memo a couple of weeks back, maybe a month back, regarding brown water complaints. And what was discussed, I think at that point in time, was lining the mains. And what we're proposing here is to go into the segments of the system where we have had complaints and pull out a coupon, okay, a segment of the main to look at two things. How badly is it tuberculated, right? So on the inside of these unlined water mains with our hard water, what you end up with is a chemical reaction where the iron and the manganese and the other metals in there react with the interior of the unlined pipe and grow tuberculation, okay? And in the low flow areas of the system, the water settles, the rust comes out, then when you get flow through the pipe, that comes out, and that's what leads to your brown water complaints. So the question on lining is the pipe adequate to take the reaming process that has to go through first to ream out the tuberculation before you can put the lining on? If the pipe wall is inadequate, if the reaction has worked in the opposite direction through the pipe wall, then we run a risk of ruining the pipe. And the proposed lining that Rich was talking about was a cement lining, somewhere between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch thick on the inside of the pipe, but it's not structural. It's simply there to prevent the reaction and to reduce the amount of dirty water complaints that you have. If the pipe wall is inadequate, that cement lining is not going to stand up to the pressure in the main once the lining project is complete, so you end up with another whole go-round of problems. So the purpose of this thing is to evaluate the pipes. I think we've got 3 in the area of Glenida, 3 in the area of the top of 301, north side of 301. No, Collier. Collier. Okay, Glenida, Glenview get 3 samples, Collier gets 3 samples. And there was another area where we were going to get 2 samples. Yeah, Lindy Tower. Oh, no, Lakeview and Avery. Lindy Tower came in later. So we take those coupons, we can then do an evaluation on the pipe wall thickness, make a determination that the reaction is in fact only happening on the inside of the pipe, and if they're suitable for the cement lining. If they're unsuitable for cement lining, we can look at it for another structural lining process, or look at it for, is it just smarter to replace the entire thing in the ground? And so that's what's in front of you.
Okay. Questions, comments, concerns from the board that you want to discuss with John Falchetti while he's here? These are water districts where we've received complaints, as you know, from residents who reside along these sections of the water main up in the hamlet of Carmel. One gentleman came in 3 or 4 weeks ago with a bottle of very dirty water that you know he had presented to the town board, and he explained the situation where he lives, and he's extremely concerned. So we did, through the Putnam County Health Department, there were water testings done from 4 or 5, I think, sites up in the vicinity of where he lives, including his home. So in order for the town to address this issue, and by the way, we provided bottled water, we made bottled water available to the homes in that particular section of town, Glenview, Glenida Ridge, and quite a few residents have availed themselves to that water. They've picked it up here at Town Hall. I think we ordered 150 cases of water, and over 110 or 115 cases went out from residents that live in that vicinity. So they have picked the water up. The town is addressing this condition, and we have a plan and a proposal to move forward to further evaluate and analyze the situation and determine our best course of action with respect to mitigating the problem, remedying the problem. So that's what brought us here tonight, and subsequent to that, the engineering department has received several phone calls from residents that reside in another section of Ward 2, which is off of Tower Road, off of Seminary Hill Road. Same type of issue, same type of condition, that they've indicated that their water is dirty, that it's not coming out clean, and it's very, very similar to what we have up off of Glenida Ridge and Glenview and that section of town. Collier Sunset is going to be examined. Rich is going to talk about that later on. Are you going to cover that, or John, the Tower Road issue?
Covered it all right now.
We're covering it now? Okay. All right, yeah, so
Really,
that's what
folks,
precipitated
I
this.
think you modify this thing to pull a couple of coupons out of so we can do the same evaluation of the pipe in those roads as we're talking about in the other areas.
Yeah, I agree, John. We should do that now, you know, approve the additional 2 coupons up off of Tower Road and Lindy Drive area of town. So this way we could analyze that and make a determination, you know, as to how to handle that particular one. So they're very similar in nature, so it could be the same condition. So, anybody else want to comment, or?
I'm sure any residents watching, what's the time frame? I mean, how,
I'm sorry, John, I didn't
sorry,
hear.
time frame? What's the time frame like, once approved, especially to do?
Once this is approved, and we can mobilize the cuts probably within 10 days of the approval, okay? And I think, the assessment is not a long lead post-cut, all right? We need to get the segment out, make the repair, restore the road. And I would think that there's a report in 30 days or 45 days back to you that's suitable for you not only making a decision, but deciding how to fund it.
All right. Okay, very good, John. Anybody else? Jonathan, you have anything?
No, just, I'm sure if it does come back where the coupons are showing that lining won't be adequate, that you'll come back with estimates for a project where it would be the replacement of those
Right,
sections.
so what we're talking about is two different lining alternatives, right? One is that the pipe wall, like I said, the pipe wall's adequate, and we can do the cement lining inside there, because the cement offers better hydraulics, but no structural improvement in the pipe. There is an alternative lining, like what we did in the sewers, okay, that a cured-in-place type of lining can be designed that is structural in nature to take for a pressure line. Okay. So that's an alternative. It remains a lining alternative that is not a dig and replace alternative, and then we'll evaluate the dig and replace alternative as well. That's in the proposal.
Okay, so even if those coupons show that it's really poorly deteriorated infrastructure, that structural lining that we did in Sewer 1, that would be possibly sufficient?
The lining that we did in Sewer 1 is a cured-in-place lining, okay? We did not do structural lining in Sewer 1 because we weren't dealing with pressure lines. But there is a cured-in-place pressure line that could be used in water mains. Okay, which would again prevent the disruption of of 100% excavation.
Very good.
Okay,
So
and then
there are
we'll
a couple of alternatives that we may be able to fix.
There'll be three alternatives dependent on, there'll be a minimum of two dependent on how the pipe wall comes out. If it's good and bad, then there would be three.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to the results.
Okay. Anybody else? Susie, John? Okay. All right, thanks, John. Appreciate it. Okay, next, number 7, 8, and 9 is Rich Franzetti, Town Engineer. This, number 7 is to consider a proposal for emergency repair, Carmel Water District number 8, Crest Road Tank. Rich?
Good evening. On Tuesday, September 19th, B&J, the operators of Carmel Water District 8, advised the engineering department about a leak in the vicinity of the Crest Road tank. This tank services Carmel Water Districts 1, 8, 10, and 13. It was determined that the leak was between the tank and the shutoff valve for the tank, and therefore, in order to make the repair under the existing pipe valve configuration, the tank would need to be drained. This action could lead to potential water shortages through the 4 water districts. After discussing options, it was determined that an InstaValve be installed closer to the tank. This InstaValve is a live procedure done under pressure. It does not require draining of the tank. It will allow for isolation of the leak and allow for the repair without causing any disruptions. The InstaValve will be here. It's not going to be here this week because it was on back order. It's going to be here early next week. So the memo has it as September 25th. It's going to be here early next week. In the interim, B&J, along with Cook Excavating, installed a temporary sleeve over the existing leak to stem the flow until this repair can be made. The estimated cost for this emergency repair is in the ballpark of $35,000 to $40,000. An invoice for Legacy Valve to purchase and install the InstaValve is provided as attached. Additional invoices from B&J and Cook will be provided to the board once they are submitted to the town. There are sufficient funds in the budget for this work as described in the attached correspondence.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Any questions, comments, concerns for the engineer regarding the emergency repairs to the Crest Road tank? This is Carmel Water 8.
When that valve comes in, Legacy Supply, they're not going to do the excavating. We're going to have Cook doing the excavating again?
Cook will be doing the excavating, correct.
So that was I was just looking at the numbers and I was thinking $10,000 to $15,000 for Cook and B&J, but that's not only for the emergency repair that they've already done just to get it in the interim, that's also to excavate again.
Right, and then patch it back
repass
up
back.
and bring it back to, correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Nope. Okay, Rich, you want to go on to the next one, number 8? This is consider renewal of an agreement for the management services for the Lake Cassie Park District.
So as the board may recall, in 2015, the engineering department solicited proposals for maintenance at Lake Cassie. It was R 2015-05. The proposal identified that the contract would be effective for 2 years, 2016 and 2017, with the town of Carmel having the unilateral option to renew the contract for up to 2 more years or any portion thereof, 2018 and 2019. Terrence Kelly was the lowest responsible bidder. A copy of the engineering department's December 2nd, 2015 was attached. And the board resolution approving him is also was attached to your backup. The cost for the maintenance in 2018, as identified in the proposal, is $13,000. Mr. Kelly has performed to the satisfaction of both the Lake Cassie Advisory Board and the Engineering Department. And Mr. Kelly is interested in continuing this service in 2018. And therefore, based on the above, we recommend that this contract be renewed with Mr. Kelly, and the cost for the service be is already included in the 2018 budget.
Okay, and Mr. Kelly's been doing an excellent job in the Lake Cassie Park District.
He has.
To the best of my knowledge and the feedback that I've been getting from the Lake Cassie Park District Committee, they feel that he's doing a great work over there, and they also recommend his continued service. So,
Now, he doesn't do anything with the water, he only goes up to the shorefront, right? Because I remember they had the issue with with
the blue
some
green,
vegetation.
the blue-green
or
algae and vegetation, yeah.
He helps out with that. He contacts, so he does a little bit of everything. No, he's not the guy in the water, though.
Right.
So no, he's not treating the water.
Right, no,
That's what
everybody
you're
I
asking.
talked to in the area said that they loved everything to the shores, and unfortunately, that's
Yeah.
probably a marine biologist's specialty there.
Yeah, exactly, yep,
Thank you.
okay. Anyone else regarding the Lake Cassie Park District maintenance for Mr. Kelly? Okay. All right, next, and these are funded, the Park District funds, that's paid for through the Lake Cassie Park District funds. It doesn't affect the general town taxes, it's just that district incurs the cost for that particular maintenance of that property. Okay, next, number 9, Rich Franzetti, consider renewal and accepting a proposal for videotaping services for the various Town of Carmel Administrative Board meetings. Rich?
As the board may recall, in 2015, we solicited proposals for the recording of these meetings, R 2015-001. The proposal identified that the contract be effective for 2 years, 2016-17, with the Town of Carmel having the unilateral option to renew the contract for up to 2 more years or any portion thereof for 2018 and 2019. Aleska Productions, the lowest possible responsible proposer. A copy of the department's 2015 memo is provided, along with the board's resolution approving Aleska. The cost of the recording of the meetings, as identified in this proposal, is $16,250. Aleska Production has performed to the satisfaction of the engineering department. This department has contacted Aleska to ascertain if they're interested. They responded they would like to renew. Based on the above, we recommend that the contract be renewed, and the cost for this service is already included in the 2018 budget.
Okay, great, thanks, Rich. Any questions, comments for the engineer with respect to the renewal of Aleska Productions for the videographer services for the Town of Carmel for 2018? The price contained in his proposal of $16,250.
I think, just because we're on the topic of videotaping, we have discussed for a couple of years upgrading our systems.
Yeah.
It's definitely something we should talk about in this budget season, at least starting to put some money towards that, and getting some updated equipment would be a really nice thing to bring us into a newer age of technology.
Yeah, I agree, Jonathan. This is something we should definitely pursue and move forward with for 2018. We have been, discussing it, but we've had some equipment failures,
Right.
Within the last 2 or 3 months, and it's because the equipment is getting old in the studio, and we have to maintain it and, bring it up to current standards with respect to videographer equipment that's available. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think we need to get a proposal.
I think
or
Aleska Video
proposals.
was also, it helped us to identify some things we can look for in the proposal, which is a nice
Yeah.
add-on that we have in this relationship.
Yep, yeah, I agree. So that's something that we'll definitely pursue. And if we need to put funding in the 28 budget for that, we should do that
Yeah, now's
as
the
well.
time.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. All right, that's it, Rich, thank you. Okay, the final item on the agenda for this evening is number 10, Mary Ann Maxwell, Town Controller. This is to consider budget revisions for July through August of 2017. Good morning, Mary Ann.
Good evening. Here to present the budget revisions for July and August of 2017. Number 1 in the general fund is to provide for the purchase of the 2017 Ford Explorer. That's $39,500. This is coming from a reserve that we've set aside money for in the general funds. Number 2 is to provide for police overtime expense from a workers' comp revenue received. That's $38,552. That's a check that we received for an officer that was out on 207C. That has, the police department has incurred an overtime expense due to that, so. Number 3 is to provide for police overtime from an ERT call-out. This is also revenue we received of $1,357. Number 4 is to provide for a sick time payout as authorized per resolution. This is in the Highway Admin Department. This is $16,293. Number 4 is to provide for a tree removal. This is from an insurance claim in the park, I think it was Sycamore Park, and that's $1,082. Number 6 is to provide for repairs at McDonough Skate Park. This is also from an insurance claim. That's $2,820. Number 8 is to transfer $20,000 into the assessor's temporary staff line, and this is coming from the line that we've set aside money for the reassessment project. Number 10 is to transfer $8,000 for miscellaneous vehicle repairs, mostly with the town hall vehicles. We did just purchase the 5, I think they were, no, the
Escapes?
Escapes, that's
Ford
it.
Escapes.
But the vehicles that they were using prior to that, we did have to put a lot of repairs into those. Number 11 is to transfer for staff salary increase. This is a mortgage tax revenue contractual thing that was added to the IBT contract. So each man received $131 more in salary this year, so we had to make an adjustment in their salary lines. There are 3 men in the highway department in the general fund, and if you look at the top of page 2, the rest of the men are in the highway fund. Also on page 1, number 13, we're transferring for a staff promotion salary expense. That's in the code enforcement department. That's $1,456. Number 15 on page 1 is transferring for miscellaneous recreational expenses within the recreation budget. On page 2, Carmel Fire Protection District 1 and Protection District 2, we're providing and transferring for an additional LoSAP contribution of $10,000 with each district, in each district. In the Lake Cassie Park District, we're transferring $4,400 for temporary labor. This was to pay the lifeguards for the rest of the summer. Number 22, Carmel Water District number 3, we're transferring $5,000 for laboratory sampling expenses. Carmel Water District number 4, we're transferring $5,000 for emergency repairs. Carmel Sewer District number 4, we're providing and transferring for utility expenses. This is additional utility expenses we had to pay in that district from NYSEG. And on page 3, the transfers here that you see on page 3, we're paying, what happens with the engineering budget in the general fund is spread out amongst the water, sewer, and park districts. So because the engineering budget has increased, the amount that we spread over the districts is also has to increase too. So it's, all those transfers are within each of those districts, but 45% of the cost of the engineering budget gets spread amongst all of those districts. And then it gets reimbursed into the general fund. So that's what you see all these transfers for. And then I accounted for an increase in the 2018 budget because the budget, you know, if the budget in the general fund increases, then the budget in the districts has to increase as well. But the revenue goes back to the general fund. Okay?
Okay.
That's it. Any questions?
Questions, comments from Mary Ann regarding the budget transfers? Nope, there being none. Thanks, Mary Ann.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Okay, that completes the town board work session agenda items for this evening. Is there any members of the public that would like to come up at this time and address the town board with respect to any agenda items that we talked about tonight, that were on the agenda? Jerry?
My name is Jerry Ravnitsky. I live in Mahopac. I just wanted to make a brief comment about the surveillance cameras. I think certainly it's important to protect the town property, and I have no objection to any of that. But I think there are probably some locations within the town that have had a certain amount of either theft or vandalism, and I think probably the police department has information about where those locations might be, and there probably has been some in the past couple of years, and I think that perhaps those locations might be a good spot for cameras in the future, so that if there's more of that kind of vandalism or theft, that those people can be apprehended. I don't think we need cameras all over the town. I wouldn't want to have a 1984 type of situation, but I think in select places it could be very helpful. And I think
The police department is working with our grant writer, and they are currently surveying the town to put other ones. So what you heard was from the rec department, but the chief of police and the lieutenant, and I believe one sergeant, is actively doing, what you're suggesting. They're picking certain spots, and they're creating, as Jonathan said, like a roadmap over, say, a 2, 3, 4-year period to put them everywhere. And again, they're working with the grant writer to secure funding for that project.
All right, I think that's good. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. Okay, anyone else on the work session agenda items that we just covered? Come on up at this time. Mike?
Hi, on, I believe it was number 6, Water District 9. I still have the same question. Well, there's been a couple of changes since March 3rd and August, which, I don't know, maybe they're technical, maybe they have meaning. But the surveying costs went from 3% to 4%. The design costs went from 8% to 7%. But we still have $35,000 in there for permits. And I don't believe there's any permits necessary to procure from any of these agencies. That would cost $35,000 from these agencies. And on the August, we have a construction administration fee in there, which I don't know how you could really have that until you have your bid amount. So, and on the breakdown, this is a small, how many houses are involved in this district?
John or Rich, do you have the number of homes that are in Water 9?
It's fair to say it's one of your smaller water districts?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, it's almost $1 million.
103, 104? Okay.
Marion, that's your
So
neighborhood,
you're
right?
A little
looking,
over 100.
you're looking at almost 10 grand a house. You have 30,000 for a temporary service. Did the town ever do a temporary service before in the history of water districts? I don't believe so. You have protection and maintenance of 50,000. I think that's beyond a little high. And I think you should just look at all of these numbers. I mean, the soft cost numbers are 23% of the job. And It's a lot of money for 100 people. It's $10,000 a house.
Thanks, Mike.
I expect since it's my proposal in my report, I ought to at least address the questions. The permits will be a part of the job. They always are. I can cite private jobs where there were months and months and months and months of permits. Regarding the temporary water supply, this area has extraordinarily narrow roads. It has a ton of rock. Most of what we're talking about replacing that's left is old 2 or 3 or 4 inch galvanized steel pipe, maybe 60 or 70 years old. If we gotta shoot rock, there's gonna be interruptions in those services. If we hammer rock, there's gonna be interruptions in those services. If I replace the main where it's at, I probably could cut the rock volume in half because I probably got about an average of 2 feet of cover in that area. We need 4 feet for a modern water main. But if I put it in the old trench, I can reduce our rock volume in the excavation by half. If I leave the old main in place and eliminate the temporary water supply, then we get to pay for a new rock excavation in the middle of a very narrow road where we need maintenance and protection of traffic simply because the people who live there deserve to have traffic control. Whether my cost estimates are high is probably, it may be challengeable, okay? I don't think we've been high on anything that we've done for this town in a long, long time, and our bid numbers and our estimates that were based on, or that previous projects have been based on, have come in and proven to be relatively accurate. So the construction engineering cost, I will tell you, is an estimate. It says in the proposal that it's an estimate. We came in under on construction engineering on the I&I job. We came in under on nominally under on construction engineering on the Long Pond Road job. And we came in under nominally on the construction engineering on the Sewer 7 roof, and we came in at budget on the Sewer 7 on the engineering for the Water 8 construction. Okay, so those are facts. They're not estimates. Any questions?
Okay, any questions from the board for John? No? No.
Thank you.
Not this time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other members of the public that would like to come up on the agenda items that we covered tonight? Come on up at this time. Anyone? Okay, there being none, we're going to open up the floor to a new public business. This is the open forum portion of the meeting where the public can come up and address the town board. Jerry?
Yeah, I hope you can give me a little bit of indulgence on this issue. I think all of you have heard many stories about the devastation to Florida, Houston, Texas, and also Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. There's been quite a bit of help to Florida and Texas, but probably not nearly as much as they need. But there's been a lot less to the U.S. Virgin Islands and to Puerto Rico. And many people forget that those people are U.S. citizens, so they really deserve the same type of treatment as any other Americans. And they have not been getting it. There has been very little federal aid, and it's been very unfortunate because it's Puerto Rico has probably been devastated worse than any of the places. I do know my son is living there, and I know firsthand from him what he has seen there. And there's no power, no electricity, no water, and people are living without that. And they're not getting any aid to be able to live there, and many people will end up dying because of the poisonous chemicals that are in the water, in the flooded areas, leading to a lot of illness and so forth. And it's estimated by many physicians who've written about this that a lot of people will die from that. So what I would hope is that our community has always been willing to help others, and I hope that there will be efforts to help the people in those areas. There are a number of big charities that have been providing help that you can donate to, including the Red Cross or AmeriCares, but there's been a lot of other groups. There's religious organizations and others. You can find them on the internet, and I hope that that the people in this community can help out a lot. It's a very unfortunate thing. I think that we may have a lot more of that in the future unless we change global warming, because that really is what has been causing it. And, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. I know there was tremendous effort when the Hurricane Harvey struck Texas, the Houston area and surrounding areas of Houston. I know there was quite a few, a lot of people stepped up from this area alone that contributed quite a bit towards that effort. And I know there was a tractor-trailer load of that Senator Murphy organized that was donated. The truck and trailer were donated that went to Texas. That was completely filled from one end to the other. It's a 53-foot trailer. And during Irma, when Irma struck Florida, the Chamber of Commerce actually had a drive for donations as well, and a local contractor donated his truck and trailer. They filled that trailer, and that was brought to Florida during that period of time. So I'm not sure if there's any coordinated or any efforts or by any organizations.
There are some, but the problem is, unlike Florida and Texas, where you can drive a tractor trailer to, not only do you have to gather the materials and the supplies, but you have to be able to ship it. Get somebody to ship it. Puerto Rico's an island, obviously, and you have to. So it's a lot more. It's a lot more difficult to put together.
I do know that there are local businesses that are already doing fundraisers, that are already collecting, and they are working through different religious organizations that I know of as well that have liaisons out in the Virgin Islands, out in Puerto Rico, and they're working on distribution. So keep eyes open. I know locally there are a lot of businesses that are starting to do a lot more fundraising for that, and I'm hoping that we'll have a concentrated effort where it becomes publicized to make everybody know that there is a central distribution from our area that will be continuing out there. Because I think one of the nicest parts about living in this area is that we're very well-to-do and we're always willing to help others. And I think I've seen it, especially being in Rotary. It was an international thing. I think anytime that there's a humanitarian need, our area always steps up, and I believe that this will be the same case. As I said, there's already businesses that are collecting, whether it be non-perishables or it be toiletry items. But again, like Councilman Lombardi said, logistically, the hardest thing right now is in regards to the shipping, the distribution, and I think that that's where we need more of a push at a federal level to help at least coordinate efforts. And unfortunately, there's not much at a town level that we could do other than try to use the resources that we may have with the organizations that we have connections with already. And I think we're all willing to do anything that we can to help out fellow man.
Yeah, one of the very big difficulties, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Jones Act. That is one to protect American shipping that was from a long time ago, and it's kind of outmoded now, but it doesn't, if any ships want to unload at American ports, it must be American ships. And if there are ships that are licensed in other countries, and many of them are, in fact, probably most of them from the United States are licensed in other countries, they have to first bring it to the States and change it, and then load it off from the ship to an American ship to send it to the location where it's supposed to go. Now, for the ones in Texas and Florida, the president waived that law, which was very helpful, but he refused to waive that law for Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands, and that is creating a lot of problems. It's costing a lot more for them to get the supplies there, and it's taking a lot more time. So, you know, we need to try to get the federal government to try to help out a lot more than they have. It would just be a question of just allowing that act to be waived for a period of time, and it would really help out a lot.
I think that's definitely congressmen, senators, and that's where it needs to get addressed. I mean, I'll have no problem drafting a letter as a citizen, but I think that's, unfortunately, this isn't the forum for that.
Yeah, I mean, I've donated to several of the organizations that are helping
Schumer.
out.
Schumer, Gillibrand.
I've been encouraging
Yeah.
people to do that, but we need
All right.
more help from the government.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Is there anyone else for new business this evening? Mike?
Hi, I'm sorry, I couldn't be here last week. I had an important meeting in the Bronx. But there were a couple of things on the agenda, and I'm really happy the supervisor tabled, she attempted to table two of them, but the one I wanted to discuss tonight, I hope you would have tabled, but you didn't. Can I ask, I'm going to ask a question before I read this, what I have. Do any of you know why there's no stripes on a diagonal parking on the middle of town?
Because DOT won't allow it.
Excuse me?
Because DOT won't allow it. They also won't allow the parallel parking striping across Route 6 or Route 6 on both sides.
On both sides.
Yeah,
The
we've already
reason-
put a petition in for that 4.5 years ago when legislator Albano came forward. Not sure how the county got the approval to get it over at the Hamlet of Carmel, but we were unable to get the approval from DOT.
And I believe the reason from the DOT is they won't acknowledge it because of a safety factor,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Correct.
With that said, there are a couple of things on this parking study and the land that I think is available, and I think I speak with pretty good experience on land in the town of Carmel, and the hamlet of Mahopac especially. You put out to bid the package for the sidewalks in the middle of town. You guys have waited 5 years on that. There are reasons. I remember the joke when Rob Vara came to me 5 years ago when I built my storage building. He said, "Can you store these poles for the town for about 6 months? We're going to put them up." And a year and a half later, I go, "Rob, you got to find another storage spot for these poles." The sidewalks tie into the parking. If you do the sidewalks now and then you go for a parking proposal or look to buy property, you're not looking at the whole big picture. I mean, if you blow the sidewalks out, as several diagrams from the late 2000s and the early teens show you, there's just so much more that can be done with downtown Mahopac. So I really believe, get your bids for your sidewalks, but don't do them. Don't do that job until you do your parking. And I really, no matter how good your intentions are, believe you're wasting $24,000 on a parking study. And a remark was made today from, I take as a leader in the business community, who I'm going to use the term, breaks her ass working for the people in this community. And when she enters the town of Carmel engineering office, she should be treated with respect and professionalism. She shouldn't be told, well, I'm not this type of engineer, or or the papers that you're showing me are obviously not professionally drawn. Because the people that drew these, I believe, had a head on their shoulders, and that comment wasn't necessary. And I'm talking about Jen Moore. Although she'll probably get mad that I made that, I brought her name in there. In 2009, a letter came from the Chamber of Commerce. 2010, another letter came. And there's Jen's signature on there. And you had an ad hoc committee back then, which I find interesting, was chaired by Anthony DiCarlo. And you know my feelings for Anthony DiCarlo. It wasn't for outside committees, we wouldn't have garbage. You might have voted for it, but you wouldn't have known about it without an outside committee. And this outside committee brought you, these are scribbles, but she dug them out for me today, as you're talking about hiring a parking consultant. Did you know we had a sketch on the Gulf Station? I forget the gentleman's in Lakeside Gulf. Did you know we had a sketch on the Mahopac Chamber Park, 2 or 3 different variances? And Mahopac National Bank, the chamber building in the back that was offered. And I'm not going to go through them, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but you got to listen to me on this. You just have to listen to me on this. First of all, your outside committees are the best things this town has ever done. And they should continue to do it instead of not having them. You should look back at that 2009 letter, because together with that 2009 letter, you had $400,000 in your hand. Committed in your hand, which now you have to go out and get again. There's also a June 3rd, 2009 letter you could look at. Plus, you should go into the engineering department and look at the multiple designs you have. Because this is what your parking guy is going to bring to you for $24,000. And then when you finalize on a piece of property, he's going to come back to you for another $24,000 for fine details. So it's not going to be just $24,000. I'm a big baseball guy, and I like using the term strike 1, strike 2, and strike 3. But the first strike and the biggest mistake that this town did was not buying the McDonald property that Cobra bought and somehow enlarged greater than what was there. I know if I bought it and did that, I'd be in jail somewhere. That was the absolute perfect parking lot for downtown. The second piece of property that I think you should have bought, and I was shocked when I sat with a board member this week, and we took a ride into downtown, and he said, I didn't know about it. Was about 2 years ago when my partner became ill, and I was very busy with New York City and some property we have in Florida. We talked it over, and we said, you know what? Let's just get rid of the property behind the bank. We can't do it. We can't build it. I came to the town, and I told them I'm blowing it out. Kevin Dwyer had it listed for over $1 million. I says, Kevin, I don't want to get an offer. He goes, you're serious? I've never sold anything with Kevin Dwyer. I bought a lot, but never sold with him. I go, Kevin, I'm serious. Sell it, dump it, get rid of it. I don't want it. I don't want to deal with it. He says, Mike, I'm getting low off at $700, $750. You can't sell it for that. I said, sell it. Get a firm offer, and then I'm going to go to 2 people. I'm going to go to the town of Carmel, and I'm going to go to Mahopac National Bank. I went to Mahopac National Bank, I didn't get a response. I went to the town of Carmel, I didn't get a response. Also, with the offer to the town of Carmel, to match the price I had, my partner said that we would build the parking lot for the town at no cost. We would take the buildings down with the help of the fire department. We would put the grinding stones down, and you take it from there. We would clear it for you. No response. That was your second strike. Now, you really have very limited pieces there, which a parking guy is going to tell you for $24,000. You have, which I always thought was the best piece, is that disgraceful oil tank that nobody wants to say it's there, yet we drive by it in downtown Mahopac. Right there, right in the middle of town. And hopefully after the next election, when I'm sitting on that board, I'm going to find out who the owner of that oil tank is. And hopefully in 4 years, when I'm off the board, hopefully, that oil tank will be gone. But the oil tank is one piece of property. I know the marina sold one of their properties. They have one more piece. And that would be a good fit for a parking lot. So you have the oil tank property in the middle of town. You have a marina piece of property on this side of town. And guess what you have again available? That was brought to my attention by a very smart employee of the town of Carmel. An email that went out. And when I saw this email that somebody gave me, I called Il Legato, who's the in-laws of these people, and I said, is it true that they're going to sell this property? Because that's got to be like what they have in it. If not, they're taking a little loss too. He says, for the town, they understand. They live here. Family lives here. Big family. Professional family, well-to-do family, and civic-minded family. And they said, no, they'd sell it back to the town. And I hope it's right. And now, on strike 3, I'm going to say this as clear as I can say it. If you don't set up a meeting with the owners of this property this week, because I know the struggle that they went through from this town engineering department to procure the documents they need to start. And I was told they have them all now. So it's the last piece not developed on Lake Mahopac. It abuts your park. Mahopac National Bank has made it quite clear that they will contribute, the Spain family, the other piece behind the chamber to utilize together. Those two pieces together with expanding the sidewalks as the chamber wanted to do several years ago, and a lot of people have pushed for, and reconfiguring the park in the downtown, and possibly tweaking one or two roads. It's a no-brainer, and it will turn the entire downtown around. And hopefully it might look as good as downtown Carmel looks, because they have water there, and they can walk. It's just, to spend $24,000 on a parking study, the intentions are good, but there's enough expertise on this board to know what's out there. And if they need help, I'm available 24/7 to point out every piece of property in downtown, every owner in downtown, and if they want to sell it or don't want to sell it. And driving Officer Schmidt, you drove downtown for 30 years. You know where you could put a parking lot. Most of the board grew up here. They know what's available, what's not available. If this email is correct, and this property is available, and you guys don't make an attempt to talk to this owner this week, you're fools. And you're doing a disservice to the taxpayers, the Chamber of Commerce, everyone that's worked hard for downtown Mahopac, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. I'll add that too. This is something you have to do. You can't discuss it. You can't say, oh, maybe we'll call them this week. No. You have to go in your executive session, which you have tonight. Somebody has to take the lead, call it. They are lovely people. They are very easy to deal with. And you have the ability now to turn downtown Mahopac around and get your parking lot and get a pier on Lake Mahopac, which nobody has. It's just an absolute no-brainer. And you should all look at all of the sketches that are in the engineering department upstairs, because I'm going to return these to Mrs. Mark tomorrow morning. And I think you should all listen to what Jen has to say on this too, and the chamber. Save the 24,000. Call this person this week. It'd be the greatest thing that you guys have done since garbage.
You know,
We'll do that, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just a couple points. In 2009, I sat on the board. I was political liaison with Genmar. Very great background of knowledge in regards to those sketches right there. Not one of those sketches was done by anyone who's a PE. Not one of those sketches has a stamp by any professional. Additionally, the land you're talking about is historically known to flood every time we get a good rain, anytime we get a good rain. When you and I discussed this last week as we went to the property, you agreed, yeah, flooding, we probably do need a study for that then.
No, I didn't say it that way.
How did you say it?
I'll tell you exactly how I said it, because I showed you the millings that were there. I said, Mahopac National Bank, its parking lot floods. I've owned that property for 15 years. I've had 9 tenants in there for 15 years. The only one that flooded was the first cottage on the left in 15 years. And I showed you 12 loads of millings that were brought there because that was the site that had to be done. I also worked very closely with Mahopac National Bank on their water problem and showed them 2 or 3 reasons why it floods, which I also showed Jonathan that day. And I truly believe that flooding issue can be addressed. And going to the point of saying that these weren't drawn by PEs, I'd like to point out something to you. Il Legato, when my partner Tommy Boniello built it, I want to tell you where I designed it. I designed it in Sausalito under the Golden Gate Bridge on a napkin. Okay? A pencil and a napkin. And I designed the decks. And I'm not a PE. And I didn't go to college. I barely got out of high school.
Absolutely, and it's a very beautiful
Okay, the second
design.
thing I'd like to point out is the building at 888 Route 6 might have had an architect's stamp on it. And it might have had an engineering stamp on the parking lot. But that was designed by myself also, together with several other buildings in town. And I could point out 20 things that a PE did that's backwards, where a businessman will do, it looks better. So you don't need a PE. You need a PE to look at the designs we have, and you need our engineering department that we have about $1 million a year we spend on to look at those sketches. And maybe our PE can do it. But don't talk to me about flooding. I owned the property for 15 years. I never had a vacancy there. You can talk to the person in that N unit. Okay? And if you go on that property now, there's enough millings there to stop the flooding on both properties. And if I put my name behind that, and I make a statement behind that, I know what I'm talking about. Thank you.
So I'll finish my comments now. I'm glad you brought up the property of Il Legato. I've had that addressed to me by a few dozen residents who complain constantly about the parking issues, with Il Legato in particular, especially parallel parking along the side throughout the busy season of the year.
Which has been done for 50 years.
Absolutely. Nonetheless, it's still a very large concern. I'm going to move on. Again, back in 2009, when I sat on the board and I was the liaison, I went over those. I've read the letters. I spoke with Genmar again today. The $400,000 number is something we can't get anyone to agree on. In fact, I've been waiting for over a week and a half to get those numbers and information since I've been contacting Schumer's office. When he was at the state level, that's when we were supposed to have gotten the grant. I've spoken to the federal office now, and they're waiting to get information in regards to the state. I'm waiting on that from the chamber, I'm waiting on that from Mr. Vera, waiting on that from Mrs. Marr. Let me think, what else did I have here? That is really the majority of it, but I believe firmly that we're all in alignment that we need to move forward on a parking situation. Please give me the contact information in regards to the owners, because I'll call them tomorrow morning with the approval of the board, same as I've done with the parking consultants, same as I did with other property owners downtown.
I would hope the supervisor would contact the owner of that property. I think he deserves a phone call from the supervisor.
Yeah, give me the contact information.
Absolutely, I'd love to be on the phone call with you.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that
I agree with you.
We should have done it 2 years ago.
Oh, I had no idea about it 2 years ago.
Nor did I.
So that's a very large concern. I also brought up that McDonald property 5.5 years ago when I was only on the board for 3 months, and I said we have a great opportunity at this time. Because just a couple of years previous to that, I was stating to the board at that time what we needed to do with parking. I 100% agree. We should not go through with our sidewalk project until we have parking, because we really we need to get rid of that diagonal parking, go parallel, change our code, get sidewalk cafes, really change the downtown view. I spoke with Faith Butcher of the Chamber today as well. I just spoke with Mike from the new director of the Chamber. We're looking to meet up next week as well to discuss just these issues. So I'd love to have you involved in it. I really want to work together towards it. But again, just because I see so many issues with all these different properties, I personally want someone that only works on parking and has the certifications, the training, the background, the experience.
There's issues on every piece of property. There's
Absolutely.
issues on my house. There's
And
issues
that's
on your
why I
house.
think
We all
it's
have
even
issues
more
on
important
property.
to have professionals involved. We'll use ours that we have, we'll use our civil engineer that we have, but because I got so many engineers who told me the exact same thing of utilize a parking engineer.
You have one of the best engineering firms in the county working as helping this engineering department. I've worked with his father, and I know his work, and to tell me that they can't do that, and we're going to send $24,000 for a parking consultant, bothers me. We have a difference of opinion. We're going to have a lot of them, hopefully, in 4 years, okay? But, you know, it's a healthy discussion.
Let government move forward instead of trying to put the brakes on government.
I'm glad. I'm not trying to put the brakes on. I'm trying to take the brakes off the government and
Mike,
get things
at
fixed.
the 11th hour on a $24,000 expenditure, there's a confidential phone call that goes to our supervisor to table it. Mike, I have to come in when I'm supposed to be with my son who's down at NYU for EEGs, so I can make sure that that doesn't get tabled, because I don't want to see the wheels of government slow down
Why didn't we?
for a $24,000
Well, first of
study.
all,
Mike, tell me as well, did I not specifically tell you the night that it was on the work session, not when you had your Bronx board meeting at Yankee Stadium, but that night of the work session when you were president, and I said, Mike, I really want you here for item number 1. I want to hear what you have to say. And what'd you say? I'm really tired, I'm going to go.
I was.
Yes, I know, I understand. But you were here for the beginning of that meeting, knowing item number 1, I specifically told you what I wanted, you left. Mike,
it was
I
a
appreciate
dog
your
and
time, and I
pony
never
show.
got a phone call from it. I look forward to working with you. Thank you for your time.
my work and my statements throughout the years on Route 6 speak for themselves. If you don't meet with this person and don't look at this property,
Tomorrow.
24,000 is chump
tomorrow we'll
change in
call
the
him.
big
Thanks.
picture. Okay, it really is. 24,000 is chump change in the big picture. All right?
Absolutely.
And
So what's the, what is all of the,
just wait. I'm saying is wait, because if you have this property, okay, you could direct him to it instead of just, we know, Jonathan, it's not the 24,000, it's not the 24,000. It isn't. It's what the 24,000 is being spent on. To do downtown Mahopac is a couple of $1 million project. The same way to build a rec center is going to, these are big things, okay? And they have to be looked at in its entirety. And to get a parking consultant to identify, what bothered me is the word identify. I don't think we need a parking consultant to identify the properties.
we're identifying 5 properties for them. They are not only going to look at what we identify for them, they're also going to do the consulting.
There
Hold on, let
aren't
me
5
finish, Mike.
properties.
If there's not, they reduce the fee. This was discussed at that meeting. Additionally, it's not just those 5 properties. They're going to look at the whole downtown. Are we going to implement paid parking? Is it going to be non-paid? How do we bring forth that? What can we expect for infrastructure? What can we expect for annual expenses? There's reasons that every engineer said, you really want to get a consultant that knows everything about parking, not a gentleman who's a geologist and an attorney who draws on pictures. I appreciate what you're bringing forward, and I really look forward to working with you.
You gave several insinuations tonight. I'm not a stupid person. So I will take the back and forth on intelligent items. But when you insinuate several things, okay, like who made the phone call to the supervisor,
There's nothing insinuated, it's
okay,
fact.
or what type of, the paper engineer, okay? We all know what you're talking about. And if we're going to get along for 4 years, which I hope we will, and I hope I'm there for 4 years, okay? I would hope that we don't talk in riddles or circles, because I came up here and laid out something that is absolutely 100% on top of the table. And I told you exactly where I drew on a piece of paper, il legato, okay? And I can tell you where I drew on a piece of paper, 888 Route 6. And my partner and my carpenter and my plumbers will tell you how I drove them crazy for 100 years. All I'm saying is keep an open mind. I'm not going to fight with any of you for 4 years. What we're going to do is we're going to fix the problems Carmel has and the problems Mahopac has. And hopefully after November 7th, I could be a part of that. But let's leave it till after November 7th. But
Mike,
I'll
I
take
definitely look
constructive
forward to working
criticism.
together. I really do, because I
I'll
think
take
we both
constructive criticism,
have
but
exactly the same picture in mind, and I think we both have the same intention in mind. I think what we really need to do is work on communication instead. Like I said, you knew for 2 weeks. I put this on the item. I had all the background. You
I
never called me
told
once.
you I was bringing this up
reached out-
tonight.
I reached out to you specifically to see if we could sit together. Mike, I want to work together.
And I came to
look
your
forward to
office
it.
and we took a ride to town, and I told you I'm bringing it up tonight. I didn't pull I'm not going to pull that on you. I said I'm bringing this up tonight.
Can I make a
Okay?
suggestion? Can I make a suggestion? You both have said valid points, and you both have equal say. Can we now just let things go? Because if you really step back, and I'm trying to step back from both sides, you guys are really almost saying common ground.
We're on the same sides.
I-
I'm not
That's what I'm trying to
not
say.
mad.
I'm
I'm
going-
mad at a couple of insinuations,
It's like the dog leash with
but
you and I.
bottom line is he loves the town as much as I do. We got that impression when we talked the other day.
Because that property that you're talking of, in my opinion, is great, and we can go to the engineer that we brought in, and we could say, that's one of the 5, and if it's only one of the 5, then the 24 gets knocked down, and we look at other type of parking in that spot. So and to your point, 24 is not a very large.
It's
So
not.
I think we're all
The
saying
big
this-
picture, it's not.
Yeah, we're all saying the same thing, but we're just, I don't know, we're
just-
very passionate.
It's very important. I'm glad you agree with me on this, though. You can't do the sidewalk project until you know what you're doing with the parking project, which ties in all of downtown.
All together.
Because you might change downtown after you figure out your parking.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Actually, according to DOT, we have to change downtown,
We do. Yeah.
right? We don't have much of a choice on that.
Well, they're
do we?
not going to issue the highway work permit unless we eliminate the diagonal parking.
So it
So-
really is an imperative juncture
So
that
we're
we're at right
kind of
now.
at a, yeah. So, who has the contact information for the gentleman who owns the property, or the family that owns the property? Mike?
I'm hoping
do you-
Mike could get
do you
that for
have-
us.
I mean, I have it in my office, but I would think the gentleman that wrote you the email, who works
In the assessor's office,
assessor's office,
he'll know the contact.
probably a neighbor or a friend, because by the looks of it, they're very
All right.
close.
He came into the assessor's office, so we should be able to get that, and if we
And
can't.
his name is, actually, the names are on the email.
Is there,
And the phone
is there a phone number on it?
And-
Okay.
And the worst case, I'm sure you wouldn't mind if we call you up if we can't get that number. The worst case.
The number's on the.
The number's on there.
Number's on
yeah.
the email.
Number's on the email.
Got
You
it.
just have to open up the email, read it, and call.
All right.
That's.
We'll do that
simple.
tomorrow.
Don't do it for me, do it for the text.
After I get back from Albany.
Done.
We'll do it. We'll get it done tomorrow. All right? John, I'll call you.
Perfect.
All right.
Friday. Either someone else.
Well, tomorrow I'm going to be,
That's my point.
Yeah.
Either-
Make a
either-
phone call
either
on your
some-
way up to Albany.
Yeah, we can
In
do a
the car.
conference call, no problem.
Phones work in the car.
You're.
You can call.
From 7:30 until 7 o'clock, you're not in the town of Carmel.
Yeah.
So-
But just call up there. Yeah.
Or have Greg call, or Jonathan call.
Ken?
we'll call
do a
tomorrow.
conference call
We'll
during
do a
lunch.
conference call during lunch.
Perfect.
How's that sound?
There's no lunch.
We're going to go right through?
There's no lunch.
Okay. All right.
I was told to pack granola bar, so
Pack-
there's no lunch.
And Snickers?
All right, guys, I hate to say this, but we have a lot in executive session with the budget. Can we,
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
All right. I just have a couple of quick announcements. We'll get them done quickly. The Town of Carmel Recreation and Parks Fall Concert Series, Mopac Chamber Park, 6 and 6N, Saturday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. All concerts are free. Bring your blankets and chairs. September 30th, it's the Saints Band. It's a classic rock band. So concert, September 30th is the Saints Band. Water meter readers, water meter customers, your meter readings are due by September 30th. I know that's Sunday. So get your meter readings in to the Town of Carmel Comptroller's Office. This way they could process your bills with the accurate reading off your meter. It's extremely important that you supply your meter readings so you get billed only for the amount of water that you've used. The Columbus Day Parade in Mahopac will take place on Sunday, October 1st. That's this Sunday, October 1st, starting at 2:30 p.m. is the Columbus Day Parade. It's going to kick off from Lake Cassie Road, which is right up here. Some people call it Mud Pond Road, but it's Lake Cassie Road up by X-Prop Realty, and it's going to go west on 6. It's going to terminate at 6 and 6N at the Chamber Park. That is where the street festival is going to be taking place also on Sunday, October 1st. That street fair is going to start earlier, though. I believe that starts at 11 a.m. Yep, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. along Route 6N. It's sponsored by Trustco Bank, your hometown bank, Mahopac Street Festival, free rides, entertainment, touch a truck, vendors, take the free shuttle from one of the parking areas. Held in cooperation with the Italian American Club and the Mahopac Columbus Day Parade. For more information, call 628-5553. So, big weekend in Carmel, in Mahopac. We have the Columbus Day Parade and the Street Festival. Both events are taking place this Sunday, October 1st, in downtown Mahopac. It's great. Hopefully the weather's going to be nice, and it's a great family event as well. A lot of things to do for the kids and the families. I did the concert in the park. That's it. We have executive session to discuss the 2018 budget personnel items. So we're going to be closing the meeting from executive session. I need a motion to go in.
So move.
You have another announcement?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Yep.
This one's more of a last-minute announcement. I've received probably a dozen different emails in regards to it. Again, this one's going to be October 1st. It's a very busy day for the town of Carmel. This is going to be taking place on Lake Lenita, and it is going to be Stand Up for America. And at 10 a.m., it is going to be a display of the patriotism led through Putnam County as we stand up for America through the national anthem. It's being coordinated through our Joint Veteran Services, through the PFC Dwyer Foundation. I know I've gotten through the VFW post, through the American Legion posts, through the Marine Corps League. Again, it's 10 a.m. Anyone that just believes that it's a great sign of respect to stand up for the national anthem, I'm sorry, it's going to be 10 a.m. Lake Lenita Shores on Sunday, October 1st. If you're a
October
veteran,
1st also.
Yes, if you're a veteran, please be in uniform. I'll be there with my color guard for the VFW post.
Okay, 10 a.m. Sunday,
Children
October
are
1st.
welcome as well.
And I believe the flags are out?
Oh, absolutely,
The row
yeah.
of flags?
Yep.
They're out? Okay. All right, great. Thanks, Jonathan. All right, so need a motion to go into executive session. So moved by Councilman Lombardi, seconded by Councilman Schneider and Lupinacci. All those in favor? Aye. Good night. Be well. We'll see you guys next week for a town board voting meeting.